My name is Kelly. I'm the Studio and Events Manager at Springload. We're Wellington's largest independently owned digital agency, and we're hosting all of these events today. We have an excellent webinar for you right now. Thank you all for coming along. It's Springload and Carbon South, and they're going to be talking about tracking and offsetting your carbon emissions. So yeah, really great topic to dive into and find out some information about today. It's going to be presented by our lovely Clare Everett. She's our awesome people experience manager at Springload. And this is Bruce Scott. He's the director of Carbon South. So they're going to be talking about offsetting carbon emissions for your business, general information on carbon offsetting, tips for success, and sharing efficiencies we've learned over the years. So some really interesting discussion points there for you to find out about. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to, are you going first, Claire?
I am, yeah.
Excellent. I'll hand over to Claire for the start of the presentation.
Great stuff. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name's Claire. I am the People Experience Manager at Springload, as Kelly mentioned. I've been at Springload since about 2008. So I've had the opportunity to rise through the ranks here and see Springload change over the years, and it's been very exciting. So I'm really excited to share our journey with you. I'm going to present now. Let's see how we do that. Sorry, here we go, present now. Okay, is that one showing up?
Yeah.
Lovely. So yes, let's see. So yeah, today we're partnering with Carbon South, our friends there, and this is Bruce, who Kelly just introduced to you. So let me start off by telling you a little bit about Springload. So we're a digital agency based in Wellington. We make websites and apps and interactive experiences and much more. We help companies get the most out of their digital tools. That might be reviewing what they already have to help them improve, or building something from scratch. Back in 2008, when I did first join, there were 11 people, and fast forward to 2020, and there's now 76 people. Springload was founded by our CEO, Bron Thompson. She was a contract web designer and developer herself in Wellington and was ready to work for herself. She wanted to build a company where she enjoyed the work she did and liked the people she worked with, her teams and her clients. She's always been very careful about the clients and projects we take on. She'd rather turn down work than take on a project that didn't align with our values. Obviously, just because someone's values aren't the same as ours doesn't mean those values are bad, but we know that we work best when we're aligned with our clients and the projects. Over the years, she gathered a team of trusted people, and then in 2018, we merged with another like-minded company, our friends at TouchTech, and we grew very quickly. So now there are a lot of us. At the heart of everything we do are the people who end up using the thing we're building. If it doesn't work for our users, then we haven't done our job. We really want the things we make to make people's lives better, be that a seamless experience while trying to donate to the Red Cross, or making it easy for people to see what support they're entitled to through ACC. And here's a lovely quote from our fearless leader, Bron. She keeps us pointed in the right direction. She supports us when we get excited about sustainability in our work and in the workplace. And she wants to help us surface the positive impact our work is having, so we can see how we're helping others. When I started 12 years ago, there was already a culture of being good humans at Springload. That's what we like to call it. And creating a company where team happiness and engagement mattered. We were environmentally minded. We were recycling everything we could. It was organically happening. And when you're a company of 11, that's as I'm sure you all know, that's not a very formal thing. So as we grew, we had to be very deliberate about keeping these things part of how we work. And Bron knew what she wanted to do next. So back in 2008, one of the first tasks I was given was to offset Springload's carbon emissions. And I had never even heard of carbon offsetting before. So the first thing I needed to do was learn what that was all about. Well, in a nutshell, here it is. You work out how much carbon you created by burning fuel to make electricity, or sending rubbish to landfills and other things that create carbon. And then you purchase carbon credits to balance out the carbon you created. Carbon credits go toward funding projects that help reduce carbon in the atmosphere. Things like planting trees that eat carbon, or the protection of existing forests from logging, or funding equipment that's more carbon efficient. There are all sorts of exciting projects out there that help reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. And the projects create measured, reported, and verified carbon benefits. And because it's measured, you can match what you've created to the credits. So that's how it works. We track the activity that creates carbon while doing business. Throughout the year, we submit that data to our carbon offset provider, in this case, Carbon South. They calculate how much carbon we created in tonnes, because carbon is measured in tonnes. And then they recommend how much we need to offset to balance things out. Once that is done, you've officially offset your emissions. There is an important last step, and that is to review what you've learned, to see if there are any opportunities to make changes in how you do things, so the next year you create less carbon. Easy, or easy when you know how. But you don't have to do this on your own. There are companies out there who support you to do this and guide you through. Since 2012, we've been working with Carbon South to offset our emissions. When we were making the decision of who to partner with, I looked into the companies that were around at the time, and we really clicked with Bruce. He really got what we were about. And once I got my head around the process of offsetting, I realized it wasn't as terrifyingly complicated as I thought it was. And the more I learned with each offset, I started to see there were things we could put in place to make it easier for next time. So let's take a look at what type of carbon a business creates. For an office-based business like ours, our carbon is created by using electricity, travel, such as taxis, flights, driving to and from places, and waste to landfill, whatever is left in the bin at the end of the day that the cleaner has to throw out. When it comes to travel, we've offset all sorts. For us, it's mostly flights and taxis, but there's also reimbursing people for petrol, bus rides, boat rides, all sorts over the years. Luckily, most of the data around each of these things can be pulled straight from our account system. So we work really closely with our finance team to log the data as we go. So when we want to pull a year's worth of data, it's ready for us to download from Xero, our account system, and easily submit it to Carbon South. In fact, one of the decisions we made very early on was to match the offset year to the financial year to help keep things simple. In practical terms, the information around electricity use comes straight from our electric bills. Travel data is all in the travel expense account. Every flight, taxi, business trip we've paid for, and waste to landfill. Collecting the data for that was a bit more interesting. I literally weighed a bin bag at the end of a day to work out the average weight. And then based on that, we monitored how much rubbish was leaving the office each day, so we could see our habits. And then we used that as a base for working out for the year. In this category, we do add on a few bags for luck to account for spring cleans or big weeks, because we'd much rather overestimate than underestimate. And that's a high-level overview of the process for our company. But I think we should go back a step, because what if you're at the beginning of this journey at your own company? And how can you get the foundation right to succeed? I'd start by looking into your options around companies that can help you offset your emissions. There are a few out there. Obviously, our friend Bruce at Carbon South, who's here with us today. There's also Toy2 EnviroCare. I believe they're an evolution of the Carbon Zero program that you might have heard of around New Zealand. And there's also Ecos, another popular provider. Contact them, talk to them about your business and what carbon offsetting would look like for your business, and get a feel for what they're like and their processes, so you can decide if you think they'll be a good partner for your business. And once you're armed with this information, you can take the next step. I imagine you're all here as you've started having the conversations in your workplace around carbon offsetting and you're keen to know how to move forward. The first thing you should do is think about who in your team is having those conversations. Ideally, we want this idea of top down, bottom up, and for it to be driven by people at the top of your company as well as the people throughout the organisation. For this to succeed, you're going to need buy-in from people in leadership, whatever leadership looks like within your organisation. It could be, that could be one person or it could be a team of people. Firstly, because there's going to be a cost to the offset and the credits, so you're going to need some budget to pay for it. Also, if someone in leadership is on board, then it means you'll have support to talk about it regularly with the team, either at team meetings, and integrate it into all areas of the business so that it's not something that happens in the shadows or behind the scenes. It's out there in the open and something to be celebrated. Identify which leaders you already have on board and then have a think about which others you'd like to approach and explain what it's all about. And then just have a chat with them and see what they think. You could go into the conversation armed with some data around other companies committing to becoming net zero by 2030 to show how relevant this is to business world right now. And about how being passionate about sustainability is important to staff and staff retention and attracting staff, and also for your clients. I think we're moving to a world where everyone is looking at their supply chain more closely. I know we often get asked for details around our carbon offset when we are pitching for work with new clients, and it's definitely played a part in us winning the work. You could suggest including the carbon offset data and your other sustainability efforts, because I'm sure there's lots of them, in your regular company reports to your CEO or your board, or you could talk about making your carbon use and sustainability a part of what success looks like for your company. And there's such a great opportunity to talk about your sustainability efforts publicly. So talk to the people at the top, let them know about your research and what's potentially involved. They're probably going to want to know about numbers and cost, and quite right too. This is an investment. I'm not sure if all of the offset companies I mentioned will be able to give you an idea of cost for your business without knowing your actual data. But as a rough guide, we're a company of 75 people with a large office space who do take several flights a year, and it roughly costs us about $3,000, and that's each year. So assuming your company leaders are now on board, the next people you need to get on board are the people who can enable process change where it's needed. It's about identifying who those people are. So start thinking about where your carbon is being created and who's needed to reduce or record it. They'll be from all corners of your organisation. I know at Springload, in our office manager, or should I say studio manager, which is Kelly, plays a massive part in our waste reduction efforts, and also our studio assistants. They're the ones who set up the recycling stations around the office and do most of the purchasing, so they can think about where things are coming from and what will end up in the bin once it arrives at our office, as in the packaging. Our finance team is a big part of our carbon offset each year. They record 90% of the data throughout the year and actually gather the data at the end of the year to submit to Carbon South. We've worked really closely to create systems to make gathering the data be more efficient each year. In fact, it's got to the stage where Nathan, our finance assistant, starts preparing the data for Bruce without even being prompted. He just owns the whole process. The next question is identifying who will be talking about the carbon offset to the team. I think it's important that not just one person that cares the most is speaking about it at whole team meetings or sending emails or posting messages in your internal chat channels. If you can spread it across 2 or 3 people, it's more likely that people will see it as a company initiative as opposed to one person's pet project. And the goal here is that it becomes embedded in your company so that if one passionate person leaves, then the company still keeps going and it keeps happening. I recommend talking to your whole team about why you're making the decision to offset the carbon for your company. Let them know the plan for the first year, which is often, let's just track what we're currently creating. And then next year we can talk about what we've learned. I'd pair this with some general information about what carbon offsetting is. You could do a team presentation or send some information out to the team. Maybe you could work with your offset provider to do that. They've probably got some great resources ready to go. I think talking about tracking carbon data with the team regularly helps normalise it, and letting the team know what's going on will help people adapt if you want to change things. And once you've done a year's worth of tracking, you can present the data and the story it tells back to the team. We do a whole team presentation each year to show the team the data from the latest offset, and people get really into it. I know our team love to solve problems, which helps. So when they see our electric use has gone up, it starts a big discussion around ways we can change that, which is great because the team are generating ideas for you. And if the idea to save energy or reduce waste comes from the team, it's got a stronger chance of succeeding. And I'd say don't put too much pressure on yourself to convince everyone in the room. I know that over years we've had very lively debates around carbon offsetting. I think at first people found it difficult to trust where their money was going. So we addressed that by simply showing them. When we started working with Bruce, he gave us some information about the project we were supporting and the forest we were supporting down in the South Island, and we were even able to show them the longitude and latitude of where the forest was. And over the years, things have become a lot more transparent in the world of emissions trading. In fact, I got an email the other week from the project team working on the most recent project that our offset supported, and they were thanking us for our support, and it was just amazing. And I proudly shared it with the Springloaders at our Monday morning team meeting and sent the details of the project and the website for the project out in the company newsletter. When they can see the impact that they're making on the world, it gives the effort meaning and it resonates more strongly. And you can make that part of the conversation you have with your offset provider. Ask them about the projects they support and see if you can find one that you think your team will connect with. So that's the team sorted, everyone's on board. Now for the practical stuff. Over the years, we've tried to make the offset as easy as possible, and here are some systems we've put in place to help. We found that making changes to how we record the data around travel in our account system has really helped us speed up the process. So here are my top tips. We use Xero for our account system, and under our travel expenses, we've set up subcategories so we can log each of the things separately. We have the top category of travel and subcategories for accommodation, travel local, and travel overseas. And the idea behind this is that anything where we're moving from A to B in a vehicle that's creating carbon goes into local or overseas. But travel expenses that don't create carbon, like parking or paying for a hotel, go into the other two categories, either travel or accommodation. So when it gets to the end of the financial year, we know exactly where to look to grab all the data that Bruce needs. And there's no need to go through it line item by line item, pulling out things where we are traveling from A to B, creating carbon. For flights, when we process transactions in the account system, we make sure a PDF of the invoice is saved with the transaction, so we can always look back if we want to see what happened at the time. I remember when we started this, we were a much smaller company, not using Xero, using our old system, and this felt like a massive step to logging everything we were doing. But it really helped us sanity check the data at the end of the year. We also log where people fly to and from directly into Xero in the description, so Wellington to Auckland, along with how many people took the trip, if it was a one-way or a return flight. And we add this to the description in Xero. This massively helps us prepare the data. So taxis, you submit the data in dollars for taxis, but we also need to remember, things like ride-sharing trips as well. When we first started doing this, that wasn't even a thing. So we've had to make sure we don't miss any of that. And we sometimes do reimburse the team for use of their personal car. We have an annual ski trip each year for the team, and we reimburse everyone's petrol and let them know that we'll offset the emissions for the trip too. I recommend capturing all of the data of where people travel to and from at the time when they submit that for their petrol reimbursement, and collecting the data around how much we've paid for petrol and when, if it's other trips, asking where they travel to and from at the time. It makes it much easier than doing it 6 months later. In case you thought I was joking about boat rides, one year for the team Christmas lunch, we got the ferry over to Eastbourne. So we worked with Bruce to let him know how many people went on the trip and where the boat started and ended up, and worked out how far we travelled. So it's important to remember how many people took the trip as well. And lastly, occasionally when people hire cars on business trips, once again, it's all about how you gather the data at the time. You could include that in your expense forms or create an email template to send to each person as they submit their expenses, or when they request a reimbursement, asking how far they drove, or where they went to and from. So they're my practical tips. Something I get asked about a lot is, what are your reduction targets, or how do you set reduction targets? Well, we actually made a bold call. After about 3 or 4 years of setting targets, we decided it actually wasn't very useful for us. We had, and still do have, a culture of not being wasteful with electricity, video conferencing where possible, recycling everything they'll take off us. So as our company was growing steadily, our emissions were rising steadily at a rate we were expecting. As we got more staff and more office space, we tried measuring emissions per staff member to see what it told us, but unfortunately it wasn't particularly useful for us. So I think just because of the nature of what we do, sat at computers, making websites, we don't have many opportunities to reduce our emissions. We'd have these big team debates about whether it was better to make computers go to sleep or shut them down and restart them. And we'd take to the internet to try and find the answer. And each time, as technology was getting more efficient, we'd end up coming up to the conclusion there wasn't much difference. And our energy was probably better spent in areas where we could make more of a difference. Once a year, when our carbon offset results for the team, when we do share them with the team, we use it as a platform to share all the other sustainable and ethical things we're doing in the company, such as responsibly disposing of electronic equipment or buying rechargeable batteries, buying fair trade coffee, biodegradable pens and Post-its made from recycled paper. And when you put all the little things in one presentation, it adds up to quite a lot. We call it our Being a Good Human session, and it sparks lots of discussion every time. So we ended up putting our efforts into making meeting room tech better and keeping the conversation alive around not being wasteful. Along the way, the team got really passionate about recycling and keep finding new recycling schemes, like all the exciting recycle schemes at Sustainability Trust. We started composting. So as the team grew, our waste to landfill stayed the same, which is amazing. We've started to have the conversation around setting targets again. In fact, it was the B Corp application when we were going through the accreditation process that prompted us to think about it again, as they specifically ask if we've got targets in place. And we do think it's important, but the targets all start with measuring and what you discover about your company culture from measuring. We're thinking of challenging ourselves to try and send less to landfill, and we can see that being able to get the whole team on board with that and reporting on it regularly and it becoming quite a cool challenge. So I would say changing culture around this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Talking about it with the team, asking them what they think we should be doing to reduce emissions, talking about it at induction, and then talking about it regularly on our progress. This will all build up, and before you know it, it's part of your purchasing decisions. Which photocopier do we buy? Which is the most energy efficient? And it becomes part of how you interact with your clients. Do we need to fly to see each other? And after this year, we all know that video calling is it's an option for us. So I would say, don't let the idea of setting reduction targets put you off offsetting. Start with tracking and measuring your carbon and purchase the credits to offset. It's as easy as that. Then you'll proudly be able to say your company offsets their carbon emissions. And that's all from me. Bruce.
Hello. Kia ora tātou. I'm a very happy man today. I must say that was a wonderful presentation, and I think what's great about it is that you've actually encompassed sustainability into your whole business culture, and that's the wonderful thing about it. I think one point about people do sometimes worry about budget, and what I like to say, you sort of mentioned a little bit about how you can actually earn business from people ask about your carbon emissions, and you've actually earned some business out of it. I if the CEO mumbles and grumbles a bit, and he's a bit grumpy like I normally am, just say, well, how about we get, you know, maybe a couple of % from the marketing budget, and we'll just put that in for our carbon, you know, carbon account, and that's, you can call it I call it pragmatic sustainability. I mean, it's a good way of getting across it. But I think there's 3 points. You've done a great job of explaining the process, so I'm not going to go on about any further about that. There's 3 points I wanted to make today. I wanted to congratulate, firstly, Springload. We're coming up to, next year will be our 10th year, by the way. Yeah, 10 years. I started in 2008 when you joined Springload, so I think that's fantastic. So 3 main points today. I want to congratulate everyone for actually even just having the willingness to join something like this, because it really is hard. The other point you mentioned was change, and change is really hard to implement. It takes a lot of time. It's incremental, but you know, look where you've got to. And I think the other point too you made, the last point I want to make, and we'll look at it a little bit more about carbon credits, rather than thinking of carbon credits as some kind of difficult concept. I think if you put it into concrete terms, as you mentioned, in terms of this is a project, what does it do? You own the project. You know, this is what we're contributing towards. It's not just some kind of calculation out there. It's something that we can do to, you know, make the world a little bit better. So those are 3 main things I talk about. This slide, this is the grumpiness again, but this is, I think this is great. Even now, we'll still get people telling me, you know, climate change is a hoax and all this kind of thing. But and we're all been living through this COVID-19 thing, and it was quite funny listening to councils saying, "Gee, air quality's gone up," and everyone's saying, "Gee, this is great. You know, the air quality's good and all this kind of thing." But I think that's the point. If we talk in terms of, you know, how much carbon is the atmosphere, you know, how much, you know, how many degrees we have to reduce temperatures by to save the world and everything, people's eyes sort of glaze over a little bit. But if you can put things in concrete terms like this, well, energy independence, you know, rainforest, people get an idea of, you know, forests and trees, renewables, you know, clean water. It's quite an easy thing, an easy concept to grasp. Having said that, there is a little bit of warning, I guess, around this. Sometimes there's quite a bit of posturing by often large organisations, things like councils, perhaps governments sometimes, where sustainability is put into a box, and you'll have people throwing out reports and everything, but the reality of the situation is everyone is just working 110% and they haven't got time to think about it. So the approach that Springload you've taken and actually integrated it into your business as a business culture, you know, that is the absolute goal, and you've done a great job there. Perhaps we go to the next slide. Yeah, this is yeah, behaviour, it really is hard to change. And I must say, I'm actually guilty of exactly the same thing. And today I was just thinking about it. I don't know if you can see these, but these are dishwasher tablets. Now, I've been trying, probably like everyone else, is to try and reduce plastic use. And I went into the supermarket and I was walking along and I saw these. Now these were they're in a cardboard box, never seen them before. They may have been a little bit more expensive than what I'd normally get. And I walked in, I picked up the plastic thing, I looked at it and I put the plastic back. I picked this one up, picked it up, put it back, walked away. What am I going to do here? And then I made my purchase decision and went for this particular one. Now, I was also worried about what my partner would think at that stage as well, coming home with this thing. And they've actually got a little bit of plant wrap around the side, and that actually dissolves when you put it in the dishwasher. So it's good in terms of lack of waste as well. Turns out these things are absolutely great. So I'll never go back. But I think it's a good example of how, you know, we do dilly-dally. It's a hard decision. We were talking about getting an electric car before. Fantastic. I'd never do anything else. And you do need to be brave. So once again, thanks everybody for being here, and you know, it's great. Now, the thing about change is, how do we facilitate it? You know, it's a common concept. You have to go back and how much time do we have to do something? And of course, things are pretty bad, but carbon mechanisms are one way of helping. Perhaps we go to the next slide. This is actually another business I do. I'd beating myself up with carbon. Then I thought, let's find something else to do. So I'll beat myself up by trying to sell big electric lawnmowers, just for another something easy job to do. But these are a great example of how actually ineffective at the moment carbon prices actually are. If you look at the example here of this big machine, you've got fuel savings of 8,500, carbon savings of 21 tonnes. Actually, that's another good point to note too. Carbon savings, Kyoto carbon, there's actually only 6 gases in there, so you get a total of 6 gases, and that there's formulas for making equivalent to 1 tonne of carbon. But in the terms of diesel, where most mowers use diesel, there's a lot of extra stuff in there that actually is not included in carbon emissions calculations, like volatile organic compounds and things like that. So it's actually a lot worse than the situation. But you can see one mower is worth 10 cars, so it's a bad situation. So for the operator, he saves himself $8,500 in fuel, but the actual carbon savings are only $600. So you can see, if you go and talk to somebody and say, you need to buy yourself an electric car or electric mower, or change your coal-fired furnace to something more renewable, the price of carbon is actually so low that it doesn't induce any change at all. So in reality, price of carbon really needs to go up around 10 times, up to about $300 a tonne, I think, to actually affect behaviour. I mean, if you had, I'd be selling a lot of mowers if I was saying, hey guys, you're going to save yourself $8,000 to $10,000 a year in fuel, plus you're going to save yourself $10,000 of carbon. I'm just sort of putting this in context so you can actually see how, you could get quite rapid change in certain areas. A lot of people talk about the economics and that and all the rest of it, but this is just, one example. So perhaps we'll go to the next slide. So carbon projects. So Claire's talked a lot about carbon emissions, what they are. You go through the process, and at the end of it, we'll go and purchase some carbon credits to offset. And this is one project, actually, it's quite old, and this was a project in Nelson. It was the old Nelson Hospital. They used to burn coal. So if you imagine you're just living next door to the Nelson Hospital, and there's coal belting out and all the rest of it. So what this project was landfill gas. They capture the gas, pipe it to the hospital. They burn that to create the electricity, and of course you've got cleaner air. At that time, it was saving $24,000 in energy, reducing emissions by 3,500 tonnes. That's probably about more than 100 Springloads worth of emissions. So that's an awful lot. And the key factor is about these projects is sometimes it can make or break a project in terms of if they qualify for carbon credits, then it makes it worthwhile and it gets it over the line. This actually is also happening in Christchurch. They actually pipe gas from the tip in Christchurch, and it goes and it actually powers the central heating for the Christchurch Library and also for the City Council offices. So, there are some great projects going around. Now, I get asked a lot about, can I do a carbon project? For example, if we put solar panels around all of Wellington, and that's going to reduce carbon emissions. So if I do that, I create that project, why can't I get carbon credits for it? Now, you would think you would be able to, and before the advent of our New Zealand emissions trading scheme, that was possible. But how the emissions trading scheme works is that basically the government is the chief manager. They are the controller of all of New Zealand's emissions. So if you created a project that reduced emissions, like solar or windmills or whatever, those projects reduce the emissions of the whole country. So the government gains from that. So in their international obligations, their obligation to cover what New Zealand spends on carbon reduces. So the only way that a project like that would work would be the government cancelling credits that it has in its account and awarding those credits to that project manager. Now, because I like beating my head against brick walls, I have often wondered, you sit here in Christchurch, we have railway lines running north and south and big highways running right beside that actually get very, very full every morning. So I'm thinking, okay, well, why don't we just put some commuter rail in? We've already got the tracks there. Calculate the carbon saved and award that to the project and make it worthwhile. All the government needs to do is basically Treasury just has to go, okay, we'll cancel. So obviously the country's carbon emissions will go down. Doesn't matter where the project is in New Zealand, carbon emissions will go down. So how do we award projects that the government has to cancel their credits and they would award it to the Christchurch commuter company or whoever it was? They would sell those credits on the market and then you'd have people commuting by train. So I just sort of mentioned that as a side because I do get that question quite a lot about, if I have a project that reduces emissions, what can I do about it? It is possible. In England, they actually do that. The government actually does cancel credits out of their account and awards it to another account. But yeah, it's a little bit technical, but it's a question I got quite a lot, so I just thought I'd mention that. Perhaps we'll go to the next slide. So Claire, you mentioned projects that Springload has been involved in, and there's a lot of different ones, a lot of great projects. Obviously, I think the first one that comes to mind for New Zealand is New Zealand's own natural forests. And of course, that makes a lot of sense. You know, we all want to, you know, see our environment protected, but there's an awful lot of different projects all around the world. I think they say that at some stage in our life, we all breathe an atom of what Julius Caesar, the air that Julius Caesar breathed, or something. There's some statement like that going around. But so we're living in a world that's connected, incredibly connected, with the impact. You know, something done over here is affects us over here as well. So obviously there's renewable projects like hydro, small, not all, you know, hydro of course can have big environmental impacts as well, but a lot of them these days are called run of river, where they have very little impact on the environment, and they just put a small trace in a river and with a generator and windmills. And one actually that Springload invested in this year was, you can see the lady sitting there. She's had a hard life because she's had to go out. She gathers wood, cuts down forest, brings it back, and then she cooks dinner for everybody in a very, very inefficient stove. Now that does a lot of things. First of all, obviously it doesn't help the forest because the forest is getting chopped down. But secondly, she's really hurting her health and the health of the children. Now what these projects do is they just usually these projects, the stove is made locally. Sometimes they also provide biomass, which is made locally. It could be from rice husks or something, and they provide that as well. So providing alternative fuel. But the thing about I love about these is that it's helping the actual health of the person involved, and you can't get better social impact than that. So yeah, we're more than happy to find a project that's, you know, suits your company values and anything like that. But don't get too hung up about the technicalities of it. We're happy to help you, all that kind of thing. But as I say, concentrate on the fact that you know, you're offsetting emissions, but you're supporting great projects as well. And I think that'll be about it from me.
Thanks. Yeah, a lovely. Oh, I've got yeah, I've got a lovely slide here with our logos to show you. But yeah, that's kind of the end of our part. Yeah, I guess Kelly, was there anything we should do next?
Yeah, no, thank you both for that presentation. It was so informative. You've broken down that process for us, Claire, and you've both walked us through some really valuable practical information. There was a lot in there, and yeah, I'm sure people have got a lot out of that. It was really great. In particular, Claire, I loved how you sort of you're sort of bearing down on how to get the team on board and really sort of breaking that down. You know, it has been discussed in previous discussions today, but I feel like we went into that a little bit more in depth, and there's some good practical tips there, how everybody can sort of take that and work with their team, which was great to hear. Yeah, and also, we had the fact that, trying to get one person on board or to go in and get the passionate person on board to talk about it within your team. But I really like how, you're advising that, it's not just about that one person, but then the next step on top of that is about getting another 2 or 3 people involved. So that's really sort of taking it to that next level. So it's seen as more of a company process, and it's not just with that one person who would, if they left the company, they might take that passion with them. So yeah, that was a really great piece of advice.
We're all about lasting change around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just thinking about the projects that Bruce was talking about, for many years we kind of didn't really entertain doing anything other than supporting New Zealand Forest, because it felt like it really connected with our team. But Bruce and I had a chat this year about the other project, the Cook Clean Ghana project, and you know, after 5 minutes on the phone with Bruce, learning all about it, I was like, oh, this really feels like something we can really, you know, immediately change people's lives, and that really struck home with me. It just felt, I guess, more impactful. So yeah, so that's why we decided to change this year.
Yeah, no, yeah, really great.
I say we decided. I decided for everyone, and then told them, and everyone agreed. Luckily, agreed.
Yeah, a really great project. Yeah, to offset with. Yeah, and Bruce, I just wanted to raise the point as well that you were speaking about, which has cropped up in other of our webinars previously too, but behavior is hard to change, and I think that was a really great point to bring up and to sort of like push through, really get down to the crux of like what that is about just being brave. And I think that that's a really good take home for people to take with them from this. Yeah, it's just about sort of like pushing through and taking those steps.
And I was thinking about that. It's never really occurred to me before, but you know, we're making all these decisions to try and save electricity, which in theory should save you money that you can reinvest somewhere else. In theory.
Yeah, exactly.
These flights that we're not taking anymore, and you know.
Yeah. And yeah, maybe that could be like part of your pitch, you know, if you've got to persuade people that you need some money to spend on your carbon offsetting, you know, what about the savings that we make on the electricity, and we can use that bit of the marketing budget because Bruce told us to do that.
And I've said the travel budget too now, so yeah.
I think we've got it sorted. Awesome. Cool. So I'll just check if we have many questions. Just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, we do. So to you both, how would you approach carbon tracking and offsetting during COVID?
Yeah, this is definitely something that, you know, that I guess COVID struck at the end of the financial year. So I guess already forward thinking for next year. And obviously, you know, some of our team, well, we're all working off site for an extended period of time. And now some of them have continued to work off site because luckily we're in an industry where it's, what we do, it's easy to work remotely. And yeah, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about whether or not we do averages, because obviously the electricity won't show up on our electricity bill anymore. It will show up on their home electricity bill. So that's definitely something to think about. And I was going to pick Bruce's brains about this year. And who knows, if people decide to, I mean, some of our team already do work remotely from other, you know, from around. So maybe there's something we have to do around working out an average cost for people off site and things like that. And also I was thinking, because obviously, you know, pandemic times, there's a period of financial instability that we're living in. And, you know, when we got to the point where we thought, okay, right, so I'm sure everybody was doing their scenario planning and thinking, you know, it's either going to be okay or not as good as usual or bad. And, you know, financially and economically, as opposed to global pandemic. And yeah, I guess we were still hopeful that we would be able to still invest in carbon offsetting. And for my, you know, and as we were planning out, we still hoped that we could do it. But also, I guess our plan B was, you know, if maybe we wait and see, or, you know, ride out the tough times, and then maybe we end up having to offset 2 years in a row and not, and, you know, sort of miss a year but make up for it later. I guess there's always the opportunity to go back and as long as you track along the way and you've got the data to pick it up further down the line if you're not in a position to do so at the time. And I hear about these companies who are not only offsetting for their current data, but they're trying to offset completely back to when they started, which, you know, blows my mind. But I find it very interesting that people are actually as part of all the, I guess, global push for climate responsibility, companies are saying, okay, well, since we started back in 1970, what have we put out in the world, and what could we do about that? Which is very interesting.
Yeah, great answer, Claire. Thank you very much. Bruce, we have maybe another minute or so, but would you have anything to speak to answer to that question, to add to Claire's answer? Oh, you're muted.
I can handle technology, leave it to me. I'd just like to say that I've been trying to get people to do video conferencing for 10 years. It's sort of another comment on human behavior, though, isn't it? Unless we have something difficult that confronts us, change doesn't happen. And that's why I say again, what you guys are doing, and everyone today joining this conversation, congratulations. It's great that you're taking it on board and positively trying to do something. So, thanks for all the people out there that may suffer in the future because of climate change. You're doing the right thing. Good for you.
Oh, thanks, Bruce. What a lovely note for us to end on. Thank you both so much. That was such an informative presentation, and I'm sure everybody's got lots out of that as well. And just to extend our invite to everybody here, we'd love you to join us for some drinks if you fancy a beer from 5 p.m. in our Springload event space. We will have our B Corp method bins out collecting our waste. We've got B Corp dignity in our female toilets. We've got beer from the B Corp company Sawmill and Garage Project, who feature on the Kogo app. And we've got Katarina actually speaking at our next webinar at 4 p.m. today from Kogo too. So most importantly, our lovely B Corp community will be on hand to answer all your questions. So, beers and B Corpers, what more could you ask for? I think we've just posted a link to that, so if you want to get yourself any tickets, then there'll be information about where the address is and everything like that. A shame you can't join us from Christchurch, Bruce. But
I'm always putting up on the screen somewhere.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, thank you everybody, and I'll see you later.
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks again, Bruce, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Really
See you soon.